All right, welcome to the Kung Fu Mama Show. Today we have our very first Zoom recording live from Miami. We have a children's book author, Eugenia Chu, and mother of Brandon, who is 11 years old. She's a former attorney and decided to start writing children's books. So we would love to hear what Eugenia has to say. So hello, welcome Eugenia.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited as well. So please tell us about your background, where you're from, and where are you from, and where are your parents from, and all that.
Okay, my father's from Hong Kong. My mother's from Taiwan. I was born in New Jersey, so born and raised in the U.S., lived in several places in the East Coast, and now I live in Miami Beach.
Wonderful. So can you tell us what inspired you to write children's books?
Well, when my son was born 11 years ago, I was always searching for and buying books. We bought hundreds of books, but there was one type of book that I could never find, and that was storybooks written in English with just a little Chinese language and culture in them, just enough so that I could show him, look, we do this too, or look, they're speaking Chinese, and just to help reinforce some of his the language that I've been trying to teach him. And so when he was very young, I would just start writing little stories for him since I couldn't find any myself. And they were just based on his day and things he liked to do. And I never, ever even considered publishing it. I didn't think anybody else would ever see these. It was just my little stories for Brandon. And then a few years later, my sisters were looking for these types of books. So I sent them a couple of my stories thinking, they'll get a kick out of it because they know me, they know Brandon, they'll think it's funny. But, they read it to their kids. And they loved him. My little nephews and nieces, they loved the stories, and they asked their mom to read over and over again. And I think one of my sisters had suggested, hey, maybe you should publish. And I just kind of laughed at her. And I'm like, no one's going to want to read these little stories about Brandon. That's crazy. And I just kind of put it out of my mind. And then some time passed, and there still weren't any books like this. So I'm like, maybe since I'm looking for these kind of books and my sister's looking for these kind of books, maybe there are other parents out there who are looking for these kind of books for their kids. And so I went for it.
Great. So you went for it and you published. So who is your audience? Is it going to be people just like you as well who are looking for, books about their culture, how to integrate culture into their daily lives? Or were you surprised that maybe other cultures are also reading your books?
I was super surprised. Really, I thought the only people who would be buying these books are moms like me, like moms living outside of Asia, trying to raise their kids to learn a little bit of Chinese and to encourage them to learn Chinese, read Chinese, and to kind of get some kind of connection with their culture. So I thought those are the only kind of people who would be interested in this book. Right. But then I was really surprised because people from all different cultures were interested. And homeschooling parents were interested, and I even had purchases from India, UK, from so many different countries too. So I was shocked. I was pleasantly surprised.
And is that something that you decided to expand on? Is that why you also decided to write the second book and now the third?
Yes, really it was, because I was first with the first book. I'm like, okay, there were some people who were interested that weren't Chinese. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, because they could relate it to, since the book is about Brandon cooking with his grandmother, that happens in every culture. So even though maybe they weren't learning Chinese or they weren't Chinese, they could still relate to the story. And then they liked the fact that there was a little bit of Chinese in there to expose your children to another culture, another language, to get them interested in it. Because, I think everyone should learn Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, it's becoming more and more relevant, especially in business and life and everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And then with the next book, I decided to do almost like a kind of a more travel book to introduce people to another city. So I did Beijing because we had actually been to Beijing a few years before. So Brandon had been, and a lot of the things in the book happened to us. And I mean, of course, there's some fiction in there. I don't want to give anything away. There is some fantasy and fiction in the story as well. But all the places we went to are real places. And the culture, the language, the food, it's all real and it's relatable. And there's a lot of history in the book. And so I did the same thing for my new book, Brandon Goes to Hong Kong. This is a proof. It's coming out March 16th. So same thing. The landmarks are there, the history's there, the culture's there, and a lot of people are getting really excited to learn more about Chinese culture, Chinese language, Chinese cities. So it's been really well received, and I'm thrilled.
Did you find that, especially during the pandemic, that your books are selling more because people can't actually go anywhere?
At first they were selling, and then they stopped. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm not going to sell any books because most of my sales, I do a lot of school visits, and I wasn't able to do that anymore. But yeah, they've been doing okay, and then it gave me more time to write. But then the pandemic, certain parts of the pandemic, you just kind of lose focus and you start doing other things. But yeah, this book sales have been okay lately.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about these school events? How does that work? You introduce your book, you do a reading, or do you actually make dumplings? Or can you tell me more about?
I've done it all. So for the younger kids, I usually do a full reading of the picture book, which is this one. Let me bring this down here. So Brandon Makes Child Zoo is the first book, and it's a picture book. So for the younger classes, I usually do a full reading of this, and I tell them a little bit about myself, and I tell them a little bit about Brandon, how I started, and I show them pictures. And then for the older classes, I did this one, Brandon Goes to Beijing, but it's too long to read. It's a chapter book, so I would just kind of go through, show them some pictures. I would read excerpts from different chapters, and I would just discuss the writing process. And kids they have such great questions. They're really insightful, and they're always complimentary, which I love.
Oh, great. That's amazing. But that's kind of cool because it's sort of like you've used these, you use your parenting tools and sort of shared them with everyone else. Because for you, this is sort of like, something you do for parenting. As in, you write stories for your own child. You write stories to integrate culture into their life. And it's almost like sort of a DIY thing, but it's turned into sort of a mini career for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I started out just for fun, something to show Brandon. Look, Brandon, look at this book. You'll learn, and you know the story, and you can relate to it, and then it grew from there. And I'm so happy that people have really appreciated the books and they're learning from them. So it makes me excited to write more.
Yeah, I like that. I like that it's kind of inspiring for other parents that they can also do something like this for their kids. I mean, they don't have to write a book, but also to have some sort of a memory or have some sort of a story that involves your kid and how they go through life, and you write about it, and then I think that's a really cool interaction in a way that people can learn and have interact with their kids. I think, yeah, especially also in terms of language as well. So you do speak Chinese with Brandon at sometimes.
I try. We speak a little bit because my Chinese isn't great either. I was born in the States, and I went through this phase where I didn't want to speak any Chinese. And Brandon's kind of going through that phase now. So I still speak with him a little bit each day. I try to do a little in the morning and then a little bit at night. I try not to press him too much because I don't want him to be like, oh my gosh, I'm already taking Chinese in school. I'm going to Chinese Saturday school, and now you're making me speak Chinese at home, and I don't know anybody else who has to do this. So it's a little tough. He's at that older age, but he's still learning, so that's good.
But at Chinese school on Saturdays, there's other Chinese culture, like Chinese students, right?
There's three.
There's three? Are you serious?
There's three. And he started at age 5 because that's the earliest you can start. And
Oh
we're in
my gosh.
Miami, so most of the population, there's a lot of Latins. Actually, at the first school, most of the kids were actually Latin Latin American.
Oh my God.
And now I think as they're getting older, the classes are getting smaller because kids are dropping out because it's just getting harder and harder. And in school, regular school has more and more work.
Right.
So right now, in his class, I think there's 4 of them, Chinese.
Oh my gosh. So it is this really tiny community. Wow, I feel so spoiled. Growing up, we had several Chinese schools in our area.
Oh, see? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from like the Northern Virginia area, so Washington D.C. and Maryland.
I lived there for a while too, but I was already an adult when I lived there.
Oh, okay. But there's a lot of Asian Americans there.
Yes.
And
But like all the places I lived, there weren't any. There was when we lived in Massachusetts, I went to Saturday school, but we had to drive so far for it.
Oh my gosh.
So
Wow.
yeah, my whole school, I was the only Asian until my sisters came. Then there was the 3 of us.
Oh my gosh. So how was that? I mean, both for yourself and both for Brandon, how was it growing up as the only Asian person?
You know, it was a little tough because we obviously looked different. And I remember thinking, I wish I had blonde hair and blue eyes like all my friends and everybody I see, all the characters in my books and on TV. I was lucky in the sense that I wasn't bullied because my mom was really, really active in school. So she knew all the teachers. She got in with the administration and the principal. She was my Girl Scout co-leader. So she was always there. Everybody knew her, so everybody knew me, and no one picked on us.
That's
so I was
amazing.
lucky for that because I know a lot of kids got teased. So I didn't really experience any teasing until we moved. We moved several times, but then we moved to Florida, and then it was like a totally different, a new group.
Yeah,
no one knew us, no one knew my mom, and that's when I first experienced people calling us names and things that. So it was, it wasn't tough. I mean, it wasn't too tough, but it wasn't great either.
Right.
So another reason why I want to write these books for Brandon, because I didn't want him to think that, look, there are no books out there where characters look like me, shows that look like me. And so I must not be that important. Luckily, things have really changed, and there are a lot more books out now, and there are a lot of Chinese actors and actresses, and even cartoons now. So things have gotten a lot better.
That's really great to hear. I mean, well, yeah, for me as well, growing up as a Asian American in Virginia, I mean, I had more Asian American counterparts than you did, and obviously more Chinese school. So I'm very blessed for that. But I did still feel the way you feel, like, oh, how come I don't have blonde eyes and blonde hair and blue eyes. So yeah, it is still something that, you grew up with, and maybe you just sort of deal with it, and you don't really know how it affects you until maybe later in life when you have kids. And actually, one thing that I thought was really odd is that there's very few dolls here in Taiwan that are black-haired.
In Taiwan?
In Taiwan. I mean,
That surprises
unless it's
me.
the traditional kind. Unless it's the
with the
traditional
qihao and all
kind,
that.
and they're for Chinese opera, they're for traditional puppet making, those kind. They're literally like blonde hair, blue eyes. Like, the toy industry is just dominated by Western toys. And it was just so shocking for me that this is the way it is, and I'm living here in Taiwan.
Yeah. I mean, I could expect that here, but
Yeah.
in Taiwan, I'm surprised. Anywhere in Asia, I'm surprised. Wow.
Yeah. So
That's sad.
it's totally weird. I think there's also this kind of mentality about just idolizing Western culture still. Still, yeah, surprisingly still. It's incredible. It's incredibly sad, actually, but it's actually something that's that I feel like needs to be changed as well. So it's kind of interesting because now you have, in the States, there's a lot of racism and a lot of attacks going on right now. But has that affected you as well as at all?
We've been really lucky. I've heard about all these attacks, and I know people who have been affected by the attacks. But here, I think maybe we must live in a little bubble because we haven't experienced any of that. Brandon hasn't seen anything in person, no racism towards us, no attacks or anything. So everything has been just what I've been reading or what I've been seeing on screen. So we've been very, very fortunate. But I know, like, my sisters live out in San Francisco, where there's so many attacks going on, and they've seen hate graffiti on places and things like that. So it's a really scary time right now for us.
Yes.
Although we're blessed. We haven't experienced any of that here.
Right. But do you feel like writing books like this, or extending Chinese culture to other cultures in America, do you feel I feel like that's a good way to combat racism as well, to have people understand more about our culture and where we come from. Is that also something that you've thought about, when you were writing the books?
I did. I totally thought about that, because I feel like first of all, it's really important for all children to be able to see themselves in books, to be represented.
Exactly.
But it's equally as important for kids to see other cultures in books, other people who don't look like them.
Right.
Because if you're familiar with somebody, you are more empathetic towards them. So if you're reading about kids who don't look like you, and you say, hey, this kid doesn't look like me, but he's just like me. He likes yummy food. He likes to play. He likes to, be loved, and nobody likes to be made fun of or to be mistreated. And so they can relate more if they see characters, more diverse characters out there. And then they won't be, if they see somebody who looks different, but they've seen them in a book or a movie or something, they still feel a little bit more familiar with them.
Definitely.
And they won't be like, oh, they're a stranger, they're weird, let's not talk to them.
Exactly.
So.
I think it's really gotten a lot better. Better since when we were kids.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree. I mean, there's a lot more representation now. And even since when Brandon was born, I've seen a lot more books with Chinese characters, children's books with Chinese characters in them. I've met so many more authors now that actually write bilingual books. So it's been really great. And you see a lot more actors and actresses on the big screen now, in addition to TV and everything. So it's been great. It's finally happening. So I think it'll just keep getting better.
Yes. We still have a long way to go, but it's a lot better than where it was before.
Right. So much better.
Yeah. Especially being an actress myself, it's just been like, it's been an uphill struggle. But I mean, I'm in Asia, so it's totally fine. It's different, but it's been just seeing, the being represented in Hollywood versus what kind of roles, and it's just getting so much better right now.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It really is. So thankfully.
Yeah. So do you have any recommendations to other parents in your same position?
The only thing I can say is just try to be consistent. Just try to do a little, even if it's just a little bit each day, just try to do a little bit. And when they're very, very young, I used to tell myself, okay, just babysit. Each day or each week, just add a little more. And then when they get older, just be consistent. Just at least do a little each day, just to keep it up. And then, because when they get older, they're gonna want to learn more, and they're gonna want to be able to speak Chinese and know the culture. And so by then, they'll have this background that we've given them.
Right.
And they'll be able to learn it much faster and much easier.
Yeah.
So, I mean, some kids are going to love it all the way through, and some kids are going to be like mine and be like, But I know one day he's going to be so appreciative.
Oh, it's a phase though, right? It's definitely a phase.
I hope so.
I feel
he's going to kill me if he sees this and he's like, gosh, Mom, you're saying all the bad stuff about me. He's a great kid, but right now with the Chinese, he's not loving it.
Well, we get to see behind the scenes of the star, Now we get Oh my gosh. So it was amazing having you here on the show. I learned so much, and keep going. We're so excited. So everybody check out the book on Amazon, correct? Between March 16 to 19. You're doing a promotion, which is you can download the book for free within those dates.
Correct. Right. The ebook will be free.
Okay, so make sure you guys check that out. And thanks so much. It was great. It was great chatting with you.
Thanks so much. This is a lot of fun.
Woohoo!